We have guidelines. We have guidelines. We have rules that we're required to follow. Each year, we have to reapply for our license. There's no guarantee. They can revoke a license. Now, also know that TED, like I said, it's 34, 35 years old now. Not only do they have their TED Talks, they have the TED.com, they have their conference, they have the TEDx program, they have TED Fellows, they have TED Translators, they have the prize, TED Ed, they're in the school system, now they have books. So it's a huge partnership. And they're constantly looking at themselves and looking what they need to improve. When it comes to the organizers and someone like myself, so I've had the pleasure of also delivering 2 TEDx talks and to organizing now, this will be my 5th year in my community. What would be important for our audience, perhaps many of you would love to speak at a TEDx event. Many people have that as a really high goal for themselves. And I would say that what you need to be thinking about is this talk needs to be like the talk of your life. This is not a talk that you just wing. Generally, if you want to apply, and not all TEDx events are the same. I know in our case in Ocala, and I love that we're getting applications all year long, and not just applications, but really inquiries, because we have not opened up our application process for 2019. We will do that in May. But all, including today, and even right before I got on the call, we received messages from people that are interested. And I love that our event has a global reach and it also has global interest. Now, if anyone that's listening is interested in delivering a talk, what you want to do is make sure that you're looking at events that are at least 5 months out. You don't want to be looking at events that are 8 and 9 months out, because those events, it may be too soon to reach out to them and they may forget that you've reached out to them. But again, if you're looking to speak at an event, make sure that you're not looking at events that are 3 months away, because most likely they've already selected their speakers. Now, as organizers, what are we looking for in a speaker? And I'm going to also cover what not to do. Things that we look for is, and what they tell us is, this platform is not necessarily for the professional speakers. They already have a platform. It is not for self-promotion or to promote your business. There's absolutely, one of the biggest rules we have is no selling on the TED stage. Another rule we have is no religious agendas, no political agendas, and make sure that it is completely commercial free. Now, so for the applicant, what you want to do is make sure that this is not a motivational talk solely, because they tell us run away from motivational speakers. And then if there's anything I want you to remember, and it goes right along with the tagline, ideas worth spreading. So your talk that you offer must have an idea. And it's not 10 ideas. It's really one core idea. And there's a great book that Chris Anderson, who now owns TED, has written a book and does a little bit of a mini seminar. You can find it online, where he talks about having a through line in your message. So a lot of the rules that we teach in Toastmasters in terms of, great body language and being, clear and being articulate, all those things come in handy. And that's why I love the association and relationship between Toastmasters and the TED platform. And what's neat about this program, TED, it is very different than Toastmasters in the sense, when Richard Warman came up with the idea, I love that his innovation was to subtract. And by subtract, what he was doing is he's saying, I'm going to get rid of the long introduction. I'm getting rid of the, the white men in suits doing a panel. I'm getting rid of the lectern. This is really, and that's where the iconic red carpet came from. However, it doesn't mean that you just stand, still and you can't move. You want to utilize, the body gestures and your body language to emphasize your message. And there's a lot of great teaching and even talks that are based on that topic alone. Now, the other things that organizers look for, so it's got to be idea-based, and you must be very clear about what your idea is. And I'll give you an example. It's as simple as, for example, I saw something where they said, when we go to the prison, we don't go to speak to the prisoners, we go to speak with the prisoners. So it was just a simple shift. And so your idea needs to have something like that. Another one that I saw, it wasn't even a TED Talk necessarily, but it was a post. And this gentleman has delivered a very popular TED Talk. He's a prosecutor from Boston. And he highlighted an individual who he said basically it was an African American man, and the picture he posted was him speaking to a large audience, and the message was, we talk about criminal, prison reform, and we talk about rehabilitation, and the words reform and rehabilitation don't even apply. Sometimes it's just giving somebody love. And in his case, he gave this guy some attention rather than, locking him up. And now he's getting a scholarship. He's going to law school, and he was speaking to 600 other attorneys. So how phenomenal is that? So his idea, that could be easily turned into a TED Talk. So again, it's not an earth-shattering idea, but you've got to give the audience, an aha moment. Now, in public speaking, we talk about the importance of, for example, in the world of Toastmasters, we say we speak to inform, we speak to persuade, we speak to entertain, we speak to inspire. So all that can happen in your talk, but even if and we love stories, however, the story can't just be about you. It needs to be connected to the idea. That's the best way you can tie in, because stories do make your talk memorable, but make sure, because what needs to happen, if you're telling a story about your mother, I should be thinking about my mother. If you're talking about a position, then I need to be thinking about how this applies to me. So, there needs to be an actionable takeaway for the audience, because ultimately this whole platform is to help people, look at the world a little bit differently, maybe change their attitudes, to create curiosity and spark conversation. That's the purpose of this platform. Commercial free, idea driven, having great conversations. And we say in the world of TED, it's the ideas that spread win. And that's why in many cases you have to apply for some events to even attend as an audience member. Some of them will just allow you to buy your ticket, but there are events around the world where you must apply and be selected to be in the audience. And I love Oprah saying, TED is where brilliant people go to meet other brilliant people. So back to our speakers. So I'm going to give you guys a few tips on things that you want to make sure that you're doing as a speaker. So number one is knowing that, that it's about the idea, not you, the person, and all your accomplishments. But ultimately, you want to have an actual takeaway for the audience. Secondly, you can refer, people will refer people to myself. And also the way we select our speakers, we reserve a few that are invited speakers. So they didn't necessarily seek us out, but we said, hey, would you consider giving a TEDx talk for TEDx Ocala? So there's generally 2 or 3 people that fall in that category. And that's perfectly fine. There's some events that the only people they put on their stage are the invited speakers. They don't have an application process. So that does exist out there. The next thing I would say is make sure that when you're filling out your application, that you provide just a stellar speaking example of yourself. If you do not have a recorded video, have somebody videotape for you. An iPhone is perfectly fine. And do not send a half-done application. We've had that happen before where they'll fill out the application, they'll try to send the video later, but it just really puts your application in a pile that's incomplete, and a lot of times will get missed. So whatever you do, make sure that you're applying it in one complete format. Don't try to do this 2-step application process, because it will hurt you. The fourth thing I want to mention is to being articulate and concise. So please get away from ego and make sure that if your idea only requires 5 minutes, then let it be 5 minutes. You don't need to go to 10 and 12 and 18 minutes. And the original concept was an 18-minute talk, because 18 minutes is just long enough where you could actually really teach a lesson, for example. Although today, this is back in 1984, 1990. Today, by today's standards, and most of us organizers, we're telling our speakers 12 minutes. The best talks right now are 10 to 12 minutes. And if we were to look at the majority of the talks, 25% fall into that 18-minute bracket. 50% are there in the 10 to 12-minute bracket. And then another 25% are in that 4 to 5 minute bracket. So if your idea is amazing and it only requires 5-6 minutes, let it be. And that you'll do yourself a service and the audience a service if that is all of it. Because if you start getting too verbose, you really lose your main point. The other recommendation I have for those that are interested in applying is make sure you align your topic with the theme for that TED event. And many times the event's theme is quite broad, so it makes it easy for you to integrate your concept, your idea, with the theme, but look at a way to make it fit with the theme. Don't expect the theme to fit with your talk. Okay, so that would be my encouragement to you. Now, as far as, the most important things is really, practice. We assign a speaker coach to each of our speakers. We also give you a pretty strict guideline in terms of when you need to have your written script out, if you're going to use slides. And my point on slides is, remember, the more slides you use, the less of you we see, because we're going to include the slides when we're videotaping your talk. And, the best image is really the image of yourself. So the majority of the award-winning talks, some of the top viewed talks have 0 slides. And if you are using slides, if it's on your slide, it's not something you generally need to say. And make sure that, a lot of times if it's a visual that you need, maybe that is the best thing, whether it's a picture of something to help people understand what you're sharing with them or transporting them to that place. But don't have something with a lot of words on it, because that will not help you. Other things is just make sure that during that talk that you're connecting with the audience, that you have that aha moment, the little shift in, I didn't think of it that way, or, that's really intriguing of how he presented or she presented this information. And then when you sign an agreement with the TEDx organizers, they will generally have the right to also pull you if you have not practiced or are not prepared. I know for our event in Ocala, we are right now starting to rank in one of the highest around the world. And what that means, it increases our responsibility to make sure we're selecting top-notch speakers that are committed to the process and not our prima donnas that, hey, I don't need to practice and I'm not going to make the rehearsal and I'm not going to keep my Zoom session with my coach because I'm already, a versed speaker. So that won't work for us. And this year, for the first time in 2018, we did pull one speaker because that person was not prepared, and it's not fair for all the other speakers. Because at that point, you're diluting that entire event, and it's not fair for the audience. So again, if anyone would like to have, further conversation about how to present their talk or to, would like some guidance, I'd be happy to privately, spend time with you. There's a lot that's happening right now in TED. I have a conference that I'm attending in Scotland in July, where they're looking again to release and share with us some updates on where they're moving, how the vision for TED moving forward. And I think Brenda, just to make sure that I've used up my time. I don't know if I have any extra time. If there are any questions, hopefully I provided a good summary for everyone.
You have at least 4 or 5 more minutes. We're good.
Okay. Okay, would you like me to just share anything else, or would you guys have any questions that anyone would like me to answer, including yourself, Brenda? I could share a little bit more on the rules so people understand. So TEDx has this rule, for example, when people apply for their license, and this may help you understand as you're applying, regardless of the city that you live in, the first application, they cap it at 100 attendees. And the only way you can go above 100 is you have to attend one of the, the headquartered trainings. And so that's how you get a higher level license so you can invite more guests. So for example, the very first year when we did our TED event in 2015, it was limited to 100 attendees, and they're very strict about that. And they have to even put that in the subject line to make sure there's no misunderstanding, that you understand that you're licensed at this point, and it will stay at that level until you attend one of their trainings. The other rule that they have, that has to be a standalone event. The ticket price is also something that they have, limit on. You cannot charge more than $100 for your ticket with that first, unless you get a higher level license. You cannot make money, even for charity. Sponsors cannot be speakers. It has to be diverse in ideas. So even though we have a theme, we have to, because that makes it more, so the success of many events is the curation of how you put together the program and the topic selection. So it's not a single subject, but rather a variety of topics that you want to feature, so you have diverse opinions. Also, there are certain individuals that are limited from being your sponsors. So for example, a company like Lockheed Martin, the tobacco companies are not permitted to be your sponsors. I may have mentioned sponsors cannot influence your program. they don't come up and speak, and they're not, other than perhaps via slide where we thank our sponsors, you don't bring them up and give them presentations and awards, but you definitely acknowledge them and thank them. What other little things can I share with you guys about the organizing? And you're required by TED to, in 30 days, to have the videos sent to them, to their uploader, and then they will review them and release them. Now, if for any reason, and that's another thing, is that they like you to include topics and speakers that speak about the scientific topic, because that was the origin behind a lot of it. However, you need to make sure it's none of that, funny science, things that are not proven. They don't want to have their brand tarnished by people, sharing things that are really not proven. So it's fine to have, if there needs to be some research behind the message if you're going into that area. And they also reserve the right to pull the talk if they feel it's not in compliance with their guidelines and their rules. So that is something they reserve the right to do. And I think, it's just really been wonderful. I know my children have said to me a lot of times in college, the professors, their assignment, their homework is to watch this TED Talk. So they're being used for educational purposes. They're being used for conversation. There's something else called TEDx Salon that it requires another license application. The salons are generally designed where you would have an event and you show pre-recorded talks and have conversation. So in Ocala, for example, I have a TEDx Ocala Salon as well. And there's a community here on top of the world that shows every Friday for an hour and a half. They show 2 different talks, and they have a discussion after each of the talks. So that's a great way to keep the community engaged and have people, hearing different opinions. And that's been highly successful. And that also requires its own license.
Wow, that's a lot of great information. I know I researched it for myself, but that's a lot of great information. We do have a question here from Kathy Norris. So Kathy, you want to go ahead and ask Manal your question?
And I think Jerry had the same question. How are themes decided and by when? So how would we figure out what the theme is?
Well, the event organizers will select their theme. So for example, we just selected our theme and we did it through committee. And when you organize your team, one of the things that TED tells you is, you really just need a core committee of 4 individuals. That way, you can, they almost call it like, the organizer and then the ABCs of organizing. Because if you make it too large, it becomes very bureaucratic. For the day of the event and leading up to the event, you'll have an entire team. You might have 20 people, working the event. And in our case, for example, we have the core committee, but then we have, maybe, a dozen coaches that are assigned either 1 or 2 speakers to work with. And then we have the person that's completely responsible for audience engagement. I didn't talk on that. They talk about that. Audience engagement is a big part of TED. So it's not about, coming and sitting in the same seat with the same people. They encourage you and they have you during your breaks plan activities to encourage people to have those conversations about what they just finished hearing. So back to your specific question, the theme is selected by each committee, each event, and the events are named after a specific location. So we cannot, for example, have TEDx Florida or TEDx Georgia, but instead you could have TEDx Gainesville or TEDx University of Florida, and in our case it would be TEDx Ocala, TEDx Tampa. So even the naming has a rule, the color, the font that you use, all those things are part of the guidelines. But the theme is selected by the committee. And what's interesting, at one of the trainings I attended by TED, they showed, for example, how many people use the word bridges. So like bridges was used, by, let's say 80 different groups. So sometimes there's overlap. So you might see a theme one year being used by one group that was used perhaps several years by another group. But I'll tell you, like our theme last year was It's Time. And so It's Time really lends to so many different things. It's time to do this, it's time to do that, it's time to think about that. So it was vast and wide and open, and yet a lot of our speakers were able to incorporate their idea into, it's time for you to learn about this, or it's time for you to think about it this way.
Great. I think we have another question. Oh, what is this year's theme and all?
So this
World Power.
theme, this year's theme is so it's RE, and it's reset, reboot, rethink, redo. So again, it's wide open. So think of words that start with RE, and any of that could apply. And we're just working on our graphic now and our announcement, but it's that simple. That's where we're going with this year.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Manal? Okay, well, Kathy, go ahead.
You may have said it and I missed it. If you wanted to attend one, what was the procedure for doing that?
Excellent question. I wanted to cover that, so thank you for your question. And I think for me, earlier we all started with all that, you couldn't hear me all so fast. I feel like I totally went into disorganized mode of presenting today, so I apologize. But I love your question. As far as, and I say that even not just to attend, but if you want to give a talk, one of the first things you should be doing is attending events, because it gets you that much closer. And the way it works, in the very first year when we did TEDx Ocala, because we were limited to the 100 seats, we had people apply. And part of it is we wanted to know who is in our audience. But generally, if you go online and you want to attend an event, you'll just hit their link. So TED.com is the main event. That's where all the different groups are required to list their events. And you can search by state or location or month, and you can see what's happening. So for example, if you lived in Tampa, Florida, and you wanted to see, you could put like a calendar year 2019 and put Tampa, and then you could see if there is an event. Or you could look by month, like if you had a certain month where you were willing to travel somewhere, or if you only wanted to look at events in Florida, then it would list just events in Florida. But again, the attendance for us, even now, we just, it's like a first come, first serve. You just, you fill out the ticket and then you attend. So that's how it's done. But again, if you're interested in speaking, so for myself, I love the TED platform, and I knew I wanted one day to speak. But before I wanted to speak, I wanted to organize. And I felt what I love about then when I actually was selected to speak, I loved that it gave me a chance to experience it somewhere else and really continue to bring some best practices and to know what it feels like on the speaker side as well as the organizer side. So, so those would be the recommendations that I have, is make sure if you're serious about it, wanting to speak, that you attend a couple of events, and it gives you a chance to experience it yourself. There's a saying that anything you want to do, whether it's climb a mountain, whatever, do you have at least 2 to 3 people in your cell phone that have done whatever it is you're trying to do? And can you connect with them and have those different conversations rather than just doing research online, but those real, intimate conversations with someone to learn from them.
Great advice, Manal. And I really want to thank you for taking time out and speaking to us today. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Our next speaker is a Region 10 advisor. Her name is Elizabeth Nostad, and she's going to help us understand how we can really take the membership of the Order of Smedley to include some more global members. I know we have 2 that are considered online members and they're stateside. But again, part of the mission of this club is to really get to know audience from around the world, so that, and we do have a lot of individuals here that they have several different goals. One is to be an accredited speaker, TEDx speaker, paid speaker, and the international world champion. So everyone here is highly competitive in those areas. And in order to do that, I think they need a global audience. And for that, I really wanted this Order of Smedley to expand its membership a little bit more worldwide. So Elizabeth, thank you very much for helping us out with that.
Should I get started? Hello, everybody. As Brenda introduced me, I'm Elizabeth Nostad, and I am the Region 10 advisor. Some of you might know regions, but as of July 1st this past year, Region 10 became all of Europe. And I live in Sweden on the west coast in the city of Gothenburg, and with a connection to just the past speaker, I was a speaking coach to our TEDx presentation just back in February, Disrupting the Status Quo. I haven't seen the videos online yet, but they should be coming soon. I'm originally from Canada, hence the funny accent. I travel a lot both for my work and for Toastmasters, so I visit clubs and members wherever I go because I think that's the real beauty of Toastmasters, that we can find friends in anywhere in the world. And I encourage everybody I know to also visit when they're out traveling. I just came back from a district visit to our district in Lisbon, Portugal. And what a great group of people there. Managed to visit 3 completely different types of Toastmaster groups. None of them were online yet. But I do know many of our members in Europe, if I just specifically speak about that, do also belong to an online group. A little bit of background further about me. I belong to 2 Toastmaster clubs in Sweden. One is the Saturday Breakfast Speakers, and one is a club that meets at a work location at Volvo. The Saturday Breakfast Speakers is an advanced club, hence also the connection to you meeting in this room, and we provide breakfast. We are a brick and mortar club, as that expression goes, and our members usually belong to more than one club. Saturday Breakfast meets once a month, usually on the first Saturday of the month. And we have our meetings in various locations, usually at somebody's home, or if they don't have enough space at their home, then in their office. So that's what makes it kind of unique, and that's what members say they love about our club, is that they get different breakfasts, they see different people's homes or offices, and they get a chance to have fun with the people that are there. The Saturday Breakfast Speakers is also a challenge, because what we're doing is when we go to different people's homes or offices, you have no idea what the room looks like. So just like you in the brick and mortar meeting there, or the people who are online, you're showing your background in your room if you're online, but in visiting someone else's home, you have no idea if there's going to be a table that you're sitting at, or maybe it's in their back garden when the weather is nice. And this is one of the things that makes our online clubs different, if I make that connection between the brick and mortar part and the online club. We're meeting members in their living room, their dining room, their bedroom, or maybe their back garden, who knows. So when Brenda first invited me to attend this meeting, I wondered, well, what could I really tell you about online clubs that you don't already know? And there's certainly more people here who attend more online meetings than I do. What I find is I attend many online meetings at work. In fact, at least 50% of my workday is online meetings. So when I come home at night, I'm not sure I want to attend an online Toastmaster meeting, much as I love you all. My assumptions about online meetings are that it's primarily, or your particular group, is that you are appealing to people who are already members of a Toastmaster club. So if you're in a brick and mortar club, then joining an online meeting makes it a little bit different for you. There might also be some past members, like today I invited my good friend Paul, who's a past member of the group, and it could be for reasons that the clubs no longer meet when he's available to meet, or the clubs meet in different locations that he's not available to get to. It does seem around the world that there's a lot of online clubs, and well, it made me also wonder, why did people join? So I did a short survey around with a few people who I know joined and asked them a little bit about it. So I'll give you some of the things that they said and as things that I thought about as I decided to connect up with this meeting. Actually, what I want to cover is why joining an online club would be interesting. And here's what the people said. So they think joining an online club is similar to joining an in-person club. Someone invites you, and then they have some message that they tell you about why an online club is so interesting. And that triggers an appeal within you, so you decide, yes, I'm going to go and see what it's like. In this case, Brenda invited me, and we had chatted previously, so I thought, okay, well, let's test it out. Another person said that to attend an online meeting through an invitation, you also have to trust the person who invited you. There's some level of trust in that ahead of time. As well, that the person who invited you has to say something interesting that makes it appealing to you that you want to go to a meeting. Something that will take you out of your everyday comfort of your home so that you will pick up and put your headset on and join the club, join the meeting. So the meeting has to sound interesting and fun. As well, I found that the day of the week and the time of the day have to suit my schedule. I usually have Saturday, other than my Saturday breakfast speakers, the rest of the day Saturday when I have to run around and do all my errands that I don't get time for during the week. So is Saturday a good day for me? Not so sure. But then you ask me, well, how would you actually market the group? How would you attract people to come? And I thought it probably is really similar to a brick and mortar club. You do need to have a wide network that you market it to. So at least in this case, you're going to invite your acquaintances or other Toastmaster members because this is an advanced group. And in the case of the members here, then you want to connect them on, you're already connected on Facebook, I imagine. So sending out a message to them to invite them to the meeting when it's happening in social media in some form is always a good way to get them to come along. I didn't have a chance to look whether this particular group already had a Facebook group where you used it to attract members. At least that's what we're doing with our brick and mortar club, is with a Facebook group, we're putting out messages that are interesting to people who might connect with me or somebody else I know and decide, oh, I want to go to that event and see what's happening. As well, if you're setting up your Facebook so that you have events instead of meetings, events are actually far more attractive to people than meetings are. Just a little tweak of the words makes a difference. In a brick and mortar club, then we typically might go out for a cup of coffee or a beer after the meeting. So it's a little bit different in this online club, but maybe there can be sessions after these clubs where people can get to know each other better. And as well, within the Facebook area or social media, you want to write interesting and fun and witty comments about what happened in the meeting so that it makes it interesting for people. And they say, oh, well, if they're doing that, I want to get to that meeting. I think we actually, in a brick and mortar club or in an online club, we do have to do a lot of advertisement. And I think like maybe brick and mortar clubs, then a personal invitation is often best. Maybe I never would have come to this group if Brenda hadn't personally invited me. So as well, then again, on the other hand, I put this notice out on my Facebook page, this meeting was happening, and quite a few people contacted me to say, I want to join. And they're here in this meeting, most of them. Just like a brick and mortar club, at least where I live, the meetup group attracts a lot of people to our club, then maybe this club, which is a mix, could also use meetup, indicating, as it's an advanced group, that there's special conditions that apply to become a member. And I think to attract more Toastmasters here, maybe somebody, the PR person in your club, could write a personal email to presidents around the world inviting their members to come and join the group. And of course, the presidents are accessible through toastmasters.org. Or like Brenda said, people that she met at convention or people that she meets otherwise online. And I think, for instance, what could be done is, so I have a group of friends, but if you did the research, you'd also see that many of my other friends are Toastmasters. And maybe that's where you connect with friends of friends for inviting people. So those are a few of the ideas that I thought would be a way to actually market the group. I think a number of us have some barriers to overcome about wanting to join an online group. And like I said, for me, my barrier is I spend half of my work day in a headset, so I don't want to spend any more time in a headset when I get home. So there has to be something really attractive to make me want to do that. As well, in my case this year, being region advisor, then I'm also spending a lot of evenings and weekends connecting with my trios, answering their questions, guiding them, coaching them. So again, more time in a headset, yeah. But my region advisor term ends at the end of June, so maybe there's some room available there. I talked to a few people and they said, well, what is it that makes an online group attractive to them? What makes them want to come? And I think a little bit of it is having interesting topics. So I did see, if I call it the advertisement that went out about this, but I'm not sure who it all went to, but the advertisement said, here were 3 people who were speaking at the meeting today, and wow, TEDx, that's something interesting, and marketing, well, maybe that was interesting to someone. The second thing I thought, in addition to topics, is interesting speakers. So what makes Manal interesting, or what makes me interesting that you want to come along and join the meeting? Maybe it's something that was written up about me or Manal. I think another reason people said they wanted to join is maybe English isn't their first language, and joining an online club means that they can practice their English when they come to it, with hopefully giving a little leave room to the person whose native language isn't English. And like Brenda said at the start too, it's a chance to connect to people around the world. So if we just look at the different people who are in here, there's my friend Alan, who's calling in the middle of the night from Malaysia. There is Aaron, who's calling in from Hong Kong. Paul is from Sweden. Dennis is in Florida, of course. Jean-Paul is in New York. So these are people that knew me and decided to connect and come on to this meeting here. So, hi everybody. I think an online meeting is similar to a brick and mortar meeting, and that is when you come into the meeting, then having a warm welcome is an essential matter. If in the brick and mortar club, if you didn't welcome guests and members at the door, they might feel less important. So maybe the online meeting also has to add that into the program, especially when there's new people coming along to join you. Just like a regular club, you want to have a varied and interesting program. What are you doing different? So maybe this time you're having guest speakers come in, and another time you'll do something different. Even in this club, which I hope to hear later, is you're talking about the progress and achievements of the members, giving public recognition. And then other people say, yeah, I want some of that. In an online club, even here, you need mentors. So are you assigning mentors to the people who are joining in the club? Because even the people who are joining online might need a mentor of how to be good online. And maybe that's a topic for another speech. Of course, in this group, like any group, then you want to get the members started in pathways in case they haven't done so. And I think planning the meeting a few weeks in advance is a great way so that people can put this in their busy schedule. They know if they're going to give a speech or something else. And like I mentioned at one point, then after the meeting, what do we do? Is there a chance for people to still stay connected online and share ideas or share feedback about what's happening? And towards the end of the meeting, you can also ask the members if they want to take a role in the following meetings, or three months out, or whatever it might be the time frame for your speakers. And of course, talk about the new fun program that's in Pathways, so they get excited and decide to start the Pathways program. So I think we all have different reasons why we might join a regular club or an online club. And maybe I didn't mention them all. So I thought I would open it up if our moderator can assist with that to get any additional comments. I see some people have been sending a lot of chat messages in, so maybe there's some comments there that we can look at. for additional ideas about how to get more members worldwide for this club. I'll open it up.
Yes. I know we have some online individuals, so were there any comments from any of our online attendees regarding attending a club that is that blended club that has both online and brick and mortar? Do you have any ideas?
Can I speak up? Just wondering, or ask. Hello?
Is that Aaron?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I was saying that I'm a chairperson for Project Infinity, which is supporting globally all the online attendance clubs. So if you want to promote yourself there, is also a good way to get connected with the world. So I founded this project 9 years ago to promote online attendance until it was fully chartered in 2015. So that might be of help.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Char, who is in person, so she has a couple of suggestions as well.
I have a question and a suggestion. Is there a LinkedIn presence? I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. It is very chatty, and there are people that are always looking for leadership tips, how to do online courses. Right now, I'm in a communications mastermind, and so there are always people that need to improve their ability to communicate, and they want to be able to structure online courses. I never see anybody from Toastmasters. I'm almost at 10,000 followers, and there's not a person that has ever mentioned Toastmasters. So is there a LinkedIn present?
Wow, great idea. I love it. We have to think of all the possible ways to get connections that way.
I know a few clubs are associated with LinkedIn. I'm not sure if we've set up our LinkedIn profile yet, but it's definitely something that we are looking into. So we can do that as well. And we have a lot of great skill sets here that we can offer various classes through LinkedIn as well. Are there any others?
Yes, this is Jan Paul.
Yes, John Paul.
Hi, good morning and good evening, everyone. I am originally from South Africa, but have been in New York City now for 15 years. I'm division director here, and I think we should embrace the new online type of club, or maybe even a hybrid club, as this one is, specifically when we see that people are not renewing. We should investigate and see why they're not renewing, and if it is something logistical, something about the space, as Elizabeth mentioned, or maybe time of meeting, or maybe their life just changed. Maybe a Saturday meeting is the solution. That's one. So that must be part of our standard follow-up. And the VPM, when it comes to renewal time, looks into why people are not renewing, and then suggest maybe in each district there should be a virtual club for people like that. And then secondly, I think we should also promote the idea that this is a global club, that a club like this in particular is a global club. So we should look at the map and see we already have a presence in, say, where we have the brick and mortar meeting, and then we have the sprinkling of people in the US, one or two people in Asia, and a little bit in Europe. So let's focus on Africa, let's focus on Latin America to make this a truly global club. And with a name Smedley, the Order of Smedley, that really calls for this club to be the standard bearer of the future. So those are my suggestions.
Beautiful, thank you. This is Kathy Norris, and I actually have a question. In getting people the Zoom link, if they're not aware of the club or they're searching, how do you manage that information?
So I'll repeat the question that was asked in inviting people to the meeting. You give them a Zoom link. How do you get them? Actually, could you repeat the last bit? How do you get them aware of it?
Yes, so we can, when we invite people, we can give them the Zoom ID where they would be logging in. But if we kind of do the ripple effect and people are learning about it, and we do, other than physically putting it in every promotion that goes out, how would we know or share that information best?
So how do we share the information about the actual Zoom link? So are you saying you wouldn't like to put it in every advertisement of the group? Another way, so like what I did when I posted on my page is say, contact me to get the link to join the meeting. And people did who were interested. So I gave them the link to the meeting.
I know our group has been discussing RSVPing and things like that, so I just wanted some ideas. Thank you.
It's a possibility there. Thank you. Dennis.
Hi, everybody, and especially Elizabeth. It's so nice to see you. Nice to see a lot of friendly and familiar faces. One of the things I want to point out about online clubs is and one of the things I think one of the reasons why I was anxious to be a part of the club, even only as a mentor, but is that the online clubs have the capability of being unique reasons for existence. This club was basically founded on the idea, and as you've seen reflected today, on how do you transition from being a Toastmaster member and maybe a contest speech contestant into doing professional speaking. I'm sure Mark will be speaking about that later. I belong to an online club. It also is a hybrid club. There's a brick and mortar meeting that takes place just outside Washington, D.C., called DC Masters. And the thing that interests me about this club is the purpose for this club is to have past district leaders who are developing ideas on how to help districts achieve their goals, and to make a platform that you can go to either express ideas or to learn new ideas. So I think if the club utilizes its speciality and really pushes forward on that speciality, I think that'll attract people from around the world. Just a thought. Thank you.
So I'll repeat in case everybody couldn't hear Dennis. And he said that one of the groups he belongs to that's online is their past district leaders. And in that online group, they come up with ideas and share ideas about how to help districts meet their goals. So that's an excellent way to do things. Anybody else have any comments? Or Brenda, can you tell me how my time is?
Regarding how to connect people to, for example, Zoom links. You had mentioned earlier, Elizabeth, that using a Facebook group or a Facebook page, when you create an event for that group or page, it's very easy to include the link there. And then when you're, for example, spreading it on Facebook, just putting a link to that event in every post.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I don't think, at least I haven't heard of it, where people spam Zoom meetings, but maybe it's coming yet. Ooh, shouldn't say that. So I think putting the link in makes people feel welcome that they want to join. Or like I did, is I didn't put it on my information. I said, please contact me. And then it also established the personal connection with people that, yeah, hey, I want to come along, so let me know the information.
Great, all great ideas. And Elizabeth, thank you for spending your afternoon with us. And for the individuals that it's evening and late, I'm just in awe of everyone wanting to come and spend some of that time with us. Thank you again.
Thanks a lot for inviting me, Brenda.
Thank you. Our next speaker, I know quite well. In fact, I've been on his podcast a couple of times. over in Winter Haven, and I've watched him grow as a speaker, as a mentor, and as a businessman. And I've been to several of his workshops, whether they were at the PLIs or even at the district conference. He's a good friend of mine and a very wise soul as well. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Mark Guy to the group. Mark.
Hey, thank you, Brenda. Can everyone hear me? Good. So I'm going to continue. Thank you, Manal, and thank you, Elizabeth, for starting us off. It is my honor to share some of the part of my journey coming from Toastmasters world and then going into the professional speaking world. So I would like to just share where I started. I joined Toastmasters in 2012 in Winter Haven, Florida, and I was just a regular member. And then I saw a world championship of public speaking, the special contest that we run every year. And I was inspired by a champion. I think his name is Prez Vasiliev. He's an immigrant from Bulgaria. And I saw his speech, and it really inspired me. What it actually did for me is I started asking myself questions. If Prez Vasiliev, an immigrant whose English is a second language, can win the world championship of public speaking, I can do it. So I entered the contest. And in 2015, sadly, I didn't win the world championship of public speaking, but I won my district and I traveled to Las Vegas, Nevada. Essentially, I thought, okay, so my plan was to create a speech or two speeches to make sure that once I win the world championship of public speaking, my phone will start ringing with people wanting me to come and speak for them and pay me lots and lots of money. That was my plan. And essentially, for this plan, I bet the entire farm. And it kind of makes sense because I live in a farmland in Central Florida. So, you know, but I didn't win. And can everyone hear me? I cannot hear everyone. Just want to give me some feedback.
Can hear you.
Everyone can hear me. Okay, great. So, and then I started waiting by the phone to make sure that somebody would call me and say, okay, I won the district championship. I have this great speech. What can I do with it now? So I waited and nobody called. It turns out nobody will pay you for the 7-minute speech just because you won the district and, you know, so far you can speak well and you have a funny story and an interesting message. What I realized is that for someone to pay you to make that transition, you have to solve a problem. You have to solve a problem for your audience, and you have to solve a problem for your decision maker, somebody who will bring you in and who has a problem either in their association, for their members, at their company, and you are an expert who has a specific niche, specific intellectual property, specific solution that will solve a problem. This is how you get paid. I believe there's a big difference between Toastmasters, public speaking, and professional speaking. In Toastmasters, we acquire the skills, we get the confidence, we get the delivery, we get the message, and you get to become a proficient public speaker. But in a professional speaking world, you have to have a message, you have to have a good positioning, you have to have a branding, you have to have a message that solves a problem. And that's essentially the big difference that I see between being a part of Toastmasters world and being a part of a professional speaking world. If you are looking to make a transition, whether you are in a contest or you're looking to become a world champion of public speaking like many others who become an accredited speaker, I would say you have to ask yourself this question. Nobody will hire you right away to speak, whether it's association, as a keynoter, and you have to really be honest with yourself. And you have to say, can I really support myself, my family, with the fees that I'm looking to charge? A lot of times you won't be able to support yourself. So you need to have a sufficient capital for maybe a year and a half, maybe to 2 years, while you build relationships, polish your message, and actually building your business. And you also have to think about what are the other revenue income streams you can make while you're becoming a professional speaker. So whether that's coaching, consulting, events, or any kind of other revenues that you can make on your way to being a pro. Does that make sense so far? I just want to see.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So let me just take that out. Okay. So one of the things I would also say is, as you build in your business, you have to make sure that you reach out to other professional speakers. Look for mentors, somebody who's done it or somebody who is doing it right now. A lot of people in Toastmasters are connected to the accredited speakers program. In accredited speakers program, there's a lot of professional speakers who can take you under their wing and can show you the ropes, who can help you clarify your message, who can tell you what to charge, who to ask, and what kind of relationship really work. Because a lot of times when you, whatever you are on your speaking journey, a lot of people, they refuse to pay. They say, okay, we want you to come, we want you to speak for free, and you'll get exposure. And you know, you get flu from exposure, right? You know, you don't really get paid. So, and you have to be able to negotiate and to sell, and you negotiate and to sell your message. You got to make sure that you can solve the problem for the people who hire you. And when you reach out to the accredited speakers, they will show you what to say, what not to say, and how to negotiate with the budget that the people have. Sometimes they have maybe $500 to pay. Maybe they have $1,000 to pay, maybe $1,500 to pay. So you have to think like a business owner, and you have to think, okay, you cannot pay me the entire fee, but can you pay for my hotel expense? Can you pay for my travel? Can I take photographs? Do you have HD video and audio that I can take during the engagement? Can I get access to the list of the attendees so I can stay in touch with them and potentially market to them? So things like that, you have to ask to make sure that you can support yourself and build your business. And as you are building and growing, a lot of times you have to have, I would say, invest or make friends with professional photographers and videographers. Because when you speak on different stages, you have to make sure you build marketing collateral. You take action shots, you take still shots, and you market it on your social media and to your database. You have to have this proof that you are building, that you are maintaining, that you are growing your business. So, and once you conduct your speaking engagement, I would say you have to ask for testimonials. Ask for written testimonials, ask for reviews, ask for video testimonials, because when you're starting out or you're in the business building stages, you have to have the social proof so the meeting planners will hire you. You know, meeting planners and people who organize events and activities, they are very wise. They are inundated with requests. You are competing with pros who are Olympic athletes, who are best-selling authors. So make sure your marketing collateral is the best you can be. Make sure your website looks like a speaker who charges $2,500, $5,000 and higher in fees. Make sure that it's not sloppy. Make sure that the message is clear. Make sure that you have good marketing collateral, and so then you can market. Essentially, in this business, what I also learned is that once you have your message, it's about relationships. It's about relationships that you make with people who hire you and who can potentially hire you. And a lot of times when they make decisions, it may take maybe 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months. So you have to be patient, and you have to reach out to them in a way that makes sense. So you don't bother them, but you say, hey, I just want to check in. I see you have a conference coming up. Have you selected your keynote speaker? Have you selected your breakout for breakout sessions? So, and it takes time. It takes time to build relationships, and it takes time to get hired. So I want to congratulate you. If you decide to earn your income as a professional speaker, you really have to be courageous enough and patient enough to build the business, and think about what other avenues you can create as you build. Once you get the speaking engagement, I would recommend reaching out to the team who decided to hire you, who is the decision maker, and ask them these questions, whether it's on the phone or in person. Last year, I was a keynote speaker at Siemens, and one of the things that they told me they selected me is because I asked a lot of questions. I asked, what is the company going through? What are the changes? Why did you bring me? What kind of things are happening in your company, and what is the message you want me to talk about? Is there any language you want me to avoid? Is there stories that are taboo that you don't want me to talk about? And I conducted this interview to make sure that my keynote was addressing the decision makers and satisfying the audience. As a pro speaker, a lot of times we have great platform skills, and it's a lot of people. You have standing ovations, you have adulations, you have people who are just excited to hear you. But I think the greatest measure of you as a pro speaker is when people leave the engagement, when they go home, or when they go back to their cubicles, or when they go back to their work, is to make sure that they think about themselves as great, as somebody who is empowered and somebody who is transformed. So it's a little bit shift. So it's a shift from you to the audience and to the decision maker. Make sure you can solve the problem and make sure that you make your audience feel like they are the greatest. So does that make sense? Can I hear some questions?
Hello, this is Manal.
Hi, Manal.
Hey, great job, Mark. And Mark was one of our TEDx speakers, did a great job. Mark, one comment that I have is sometimes as people are transitioning to the professional speaker, and they may be asked to do something for a nonprofit, or an organization that may not have a budget. And my recommendation, I want to see if you agree or would recommend it, is to do an in-kind. So you still send them the bill, you show them that you've comped it, but it just psychologically keeps you, as you're transitioning into that professional speaker, that yes, you are charging even though you're comping it. So this is the value that you've just gifted this organization. Do you agree, disagree?
Absolutely, I agree. And I do want to say that there's no one way to transition to being a pro speaker, right? There's many ways. You can write a book and can become a bestseller. You can have a podcast, have a huge following. You can be an influencer. You can be like Manal is working on so many different interests and projects and causes. And about the nonprofit, yes. When I think it's a shift in the mindset. When we give speeches in Toastmasters, I think the financial stakes are very low, right? We have evaluations, we have competitions, but the transfer, the exchange of monetary value, the exchange of money is not there, other than us paying the dues. So when you transition to being a pro speaker, you have to look at yourself as a provider of value, as a provider of a solution. So yes, I always say, what other things can what other things can we have an exchange for? Whether it's a bill in exchange in kind, but is there marketing collateral I can use, or is there a recommendation, or is there a video testimonial? Because you have to think of yourself at a higher level. Because if you don't take yourself seriously, nobody else will. And I think you'd have to take those steps that are appropriate for you. And I think this is where mentorship comes. You can't think of this way yourself to the professional speaking on your own. You have to reach out to people who are already doing it and who already done it, and connect with them. And there's more than one way to become. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Kathy Norris, and I love that dialogue there. I just want to share from my own personal experience. I was subject of a 2016 IRS audit. And my CPA, in guiding me through the audit, said, do anything in kind for anyone, because if you do, then that should be reported as a tax transaction. So consult your tax advisor, and that was also probably be subject to your value system itself.
Right. Absolutely. One other thing I want to make sure that I'm very clear about is when you are positioning yourself in the marketplace, when you are thinking about what is going to be your message, what is that message that you are passionate about, that you have done substantiative amount of research in that field, and what is the problem that you're solving, and what is the solution? Who is your target audience? When you say, for example, I can speak to anyone on any topic anywhere, I think you are, I think you're pricing or taking yourself out of the marketplace. One of the ways that have helped me is to focus on a specific industry. For example, salespeople in hospitality industry and salespeople in the real estate industry. This is the people that I talk about, and I also talk to software developers at a software companies as well on productivity topics. So what I would say is pick your lane. You can be a commodity or you can be an expert. And as you build your journey, you build your book of business, I think it's worth to become an expert, because an expert, people will reach out to you because of your solutions, what you have done, and because of the target audience that you serve. So I would say you can start out as a commodity, but you have to figure out your way to become an expert. And you have to think, honestly, how will I get there? Who do I need to reach out? And in the beginning, I think you do have to speak a lot for free or at a very reduced cost, just to make sure that you build the confidence, build the contacts, build the relationships, build the testimonials, and also work through your message so that you become the expert that that you would like to become.
Mark, as well as Elizabeth and our, my brain just farted. Manal, for speaking today. Just one housekeeping note: if you're here in the room, please come up to me afterwards. I need to put you guys into a spreadsheet for our guest list. If you are online, I've been getting some email. Okay, so please, 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 okay, if you are online, please provide an email so that we can follow up with you afterwards. Okay. Now, I do have one question of my own from Mark. And Mark, so when you're working to become an expert in a certain area, do you think that it's necessary? For example, we've got a number of people who are certified in their fields in this room. Okay. Do you think that someone who is certified as a physician or as a CPA or something can automatically be called an expert, or do you have to speak to establish your credentials?
Okay, so can you be more specific? Like, do you have a specific case study? Like, what do you mean? Like somebody is a physician, right?
Yes.
And that, I mean, they're a physician in their field, in their field of study, in the field of practice. What I would say is, okay, so now you have specific expertise, but in order to be asked to speak and in order to build your business, I think you have to connect different dots, right? Connect different dots and go deeper. Okay, so who will you speak about? Excuse me, who will you talk to? Who is your audience? What is their issues that are facing their industry, their niche right now? What is your solution that you can provide? And I think being an expert is one thing, but then also being a thought leader. So you talk about this idea. You do not just research that's required to become credentialed, but you go deeper. You do TED Talks. You write a book. You write several books. You contribute to panels. You create your visibility. You build your credibility. So that way you become more and more of an expert. Just because you have credential in one field, I think you have to go deeper. You have to create more visibility. And I would even say, focus on a problem that you solve for your target audience, and then position yourself as an expert through visibility and through TED Talks, through documentaries, through videos, through panel discussions, and just go this way.
Do you have any other questions from the audience in here? Or online? All right. Okay. All right. It does not look like we have any other questions online. Do we have anyone here? No?
So again, I want to thank everybody who came out this morning and this afternoon and this evening to be a part of this workshop, a little snapshot of what this club can provide you with. So Mark, when you were talking about get out there and make yourself known and try out different venues to really hone in on your skills, do you think being part of the Speakers Bureau would help in that regard? Because part of the application process with the Speakers Bureau is, one of the questions is, what problem do you solve? And that's the message I've heard throughout the entire process today, whether it's marketing the club, marketing yourself, being part of a TEDx, is what challenge or what problem do you solve? And do you think if somebody was a member of, say, a district speakers bureau, which would have that bio, not only is it the certification if there is such a thing, but it also says, this is the problem that I can solve for you if you hire me?
Well, yes, I believe it does not hurt. What I would say is, if you are serious about becoming a person who uses speaking to build their business, right? You use speaking to solve a problem and to be either keynote speaker, sell from the stage, be a consultant, be a coach, run your own events. I say it takes action. It's yes, you can become part of the bureau, but if you take no action, just other than a listing or have a profile, nothing will happen. You really have to make sure you take action. Like if you want to speak to physicians, let's say people who do specialized treatment, reach out to their association, find out what is their problem. Can you help them? And offer to speak at their convention, at their conference, sometimes for free, sometimes at reduced cost, so you can get your name in the door. Just because you are listed somewhere, because speaker bureaus will promote you because organizations reach out to them. But I don't think organizations reach out to Toastmasters speaker bureaus because they're not marketing houses, right? It's their primary function is not to market, or they don't have marketing budgets.
Does anyone else have any comments, questions, or anything else? Well, Mark, I want to thank you again for spending some of your Saturday with us. And again, for any of the online guests, I do want to invite you to come back. The next meeting that this club will have will be the second week in April. It is the only April meeting we have because District 48 has their conference at the end of April. But I do want to welcome each of you to come back, and we'll be reaching out to you to get your feedback on what you thought. We are working through some challenges at times with our online portion, but it's one of the key components of this club that we can attract people from around the world. So again, I thank each of you for spending your morning, your evening, and your afternoon with us. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.